One of the things that we're seeing with Microsoft and Sony at this point is that they are going to start porting over or are already porting over a lot of their games, even big first party titles or IP owned games, to other platforms. This really got started with Microsoft when they started putting games over to other platforms because their console sales were dwindling and they made a bazillion dollars worth in acquisition, so they have to make more money to support their massive workforce that's powering Xbox Game Pass and all those different studios that they did purchase. So essentially they had to go that route. If you look at Sony, they've been more resistant overall, but they've slowly but surely started to do a couple different things, from licensing their IPs, the smaller ones, Patapon, Freedom Wars, the Hot Shots Golf, other type of titles like that, to be on the Nintendo Switch in addition to PC, also bringing over some of their biggest games to PC, and more recently, even first ever for Sony when it comes down to it, putting a big first-party IP like Helldivers that they own overall. They don't own the studio, but they own the Helldivers IP, putting that on Xbox. So we're starting to see that they are putting more games over, and now Nate the Hate has come out and stated that yes, more PlayStation games will be coming to Xbox. The new management over at Sony after Jim Ryan are looking at different ways to get new users to purchase their games. But one thing that we've seen so far when it comes to this industry is that Nintendo has not bucked at this point. The furthest that they've went to when it comes to anything in the modern day is putting some of their IPs on mobile, tablets, smartphones, having some type of deal, Nvidia Shield, like in China, some stuff like that, but nothing when it comes to putting titles natively on PC in addition to Xbox and PlayStation. And some people are wondering if they're ever going to do that. And while I do think that it's a possibility in the future, right now Nintendo is showing us with the Switch 2 exactly why they are not porting their games to other platforms, because we have a massive update in terms of what they're doing. So the sales numbers for the Nintendo Switch 2 are out, and the system sold 5.83 million units for the month of June. That was the launch month from June 5th to the end of June. That was how much they sold. Now for the first 7 weeks, as they are running out of stock and supplies, they have sold over 6 million units. So for the first 7 weeks from June 5th and on. So that's not even all of July, encompassing all of the impact for Donkey Kong Bonanza, for example, and getting those restocks in. But they did have quite a bit of shortages, which Nintendo did state that yes, we're trying hard to meet the demand. We ran out of stock, but we're trying our best to meet the demand. And it does seem like things are flowing in naturally when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 stock now at this point, by the end of July and early August now at this point. So we'll see how things go from here, which I think it's going to be pretty good. Pokemon Legends ZA coming up, and Donkey Kong Bonanza, of course, helping to push the system along with Mario Kart World. But I want to talk about this because Nintendo specifically said one thing in their financial results that kind of shows that they really are comfortable just not porting over to PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, because they talked about what they want to do to actually drive the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. And they said this, quote, "For Nintendo Switch 2, we will aim to invigorate the platform and expand the user base by conveying the unique appeal of the hardware, including its improved performance and newly added features, and by continuing to introduce new titles that can leverage that appeal to the fullest." So they also went into the software that's going to help them with this, and I am going to go over something that I had a really long discussion with somebody online saying that software doesn't sell hardware, which is just the most insane thing, but Nintendo's literally telling you right now that's how they're selling, and that's why they've been doing so well, is because they have that software that's going to help drive the hardware sales. So let's get into what else they had to say in this investor report. Regarding Nintendo Switch 2 software, following the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza and Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, plus Jamboree TV this July, we plan to release Dragon Drive and Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, plus Star Cross World in August. In October, we are planning to release Pokemon Legends ZA Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, as well as a Nintendo Switch 2 hardware bundle that includes this title. There is also a wide variety of titles from other software publishers scheduled to be released. We will aim to maximize software sales by maintaining the momentum of Mario Kart World, which has gotten off to a strong start, and by continuously introducing these new titles. So it's interesting that they mentioned Mario Kart World, because that game also got a sales update, its first one ever, and Mario Kart World sales hit 5.63 million units. Then if you look at it for the month of June, 5.63 million units, 5.83 sales for June for the Nintendo Switch 2. A large majority of that was probably the Mario Kart World Nintendo Switch 2 bundle, but that is a around 94% attach ratio when it comes down to it. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that Mario Kart World was one of the most significant sales drivers or system sellers that Nintendo, or more like the gaming industry, has ever had, because 5.83 million units for June, that is a record. There is no need to port your games or port anything over to other platforms when you can convince that many people in the span of a few weeks to buy your system, and then also have, even continuing into the next month with Donkey Kong Bonanza, more people saying, I want to play the system for X, Y, and Z exclusives that are coming out for the system. So that's essentially the reason why they are not porting over to other platforms. They have huge growth. They had that with the Nintendo Switch 1, where they had a huge library of games where they made a ton of money, and they were completely fine with building their own platform and not complicating the process overall of bringing over games, and probably having to bring in even more developers and kind of expanding things quite a bit, with the fear of potentially losing out on their own console sales. Because if you look at the examples that are out there, you look at Xbox, that's pretty much the real example that we can look at. Xbox has put their games over on other platforms, and their sales were dwindling even before then due to a variety of reasons, but it's not like their console sales are going up now that they're porting over to other platforms. Now, yes, they're making a ton of revenue and everything, but it was because they were seeing that decline even when they had exclusives overall. Those declines were happening over and over, and they started to still acquire more and more. So Nintendo's not in the same position. They don't have to necessarily do that. Microsoft did that because they were not able to produce when they were doing the exclusives. Nintendo's been able to produce when it comes to console sales overall, so there's no need for them to do that at this point, all things considered. Now, could that change in the future? Absolutely, it could change. If things stagnate, if they're not able to push the new user acquisition as high as they want to with the Nintendo Switch 2, maybe they do decide to bring over some stuff to PC or some stuff to Xbox or PlayStation in order to get a boost and kind of boost things up. Maybe even older titles, like something like Mario Sunshine or whatever the case is, right? They can bring over Mario Galaxy, or they can bring over some old title to PC and kind of hype it up in that type of way, like they did their mobile games overall. And would that be a hit? And would there be people be upset with that when it comes to Nintendo? Probably. But at the end of the day, I'm just here to play the games. But I do think that they feel that in order to really drive the sales of a platform and drive their own intrinsic business, that they have to have these exclusives to further push the appeal of the system. That's what they went with, and I think until it doesn't work at all when it comes down to it, they're not going to stop doing that. So those are the reasons why they haven't done it yet at this point. If you look at what's coming up, obviously they're doing stuff like the bundle, Pokemon Legends ZA. If you combine that with the Nintendo Switch 2, that game is going to be probably pretty big in Japan overall. We're already seeing the sales when it comes to Amazon. It's shooting up the sales charts. I think once it becomes available in most other places, it's going to shoot up the sales charts as well. Because it's Pokemon, you know it's going to do well. So it's one of those things to where that's also going to help drive the sales to where they feel that they do not actually need to have their games ported over to other platforms and anything. And they also talked about what's coming up as well. We do have a confirmation overall that Metroid Prime 4 is still set for 2025. Some people were thinking that Metroid Prime 4 is going to slip out of 2025 because they didn't talk about it, or they haven't talked about the release date. That's not happening at this point, according to Nintendo's financial reports. They actually went over a number of games that are slated for the Nintendo Switch 2 since the launch. Donkey Kong Bonanza, we know about that. Drag Cross Drive is the next big game coming out, or more like not even big, but next game coming out. That's only a $20 game, but it looks better than when they first showed it. The overview trailer was actually pretty nice. I reacted to it on stream the other day, and it actually looks like it has a bit more content and depth than I thought it was going to have, or more people thought that it was going to have. And at 20 bucks, hey, whatever. There's going to be a demo coming up too, so you can check it out. If it sucks, then it sucks. But they also have Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Starcross World. I think that's going to be big in terms of a driver, because a lot of people bought that game and it was fantastic. That sold over 8 million units, but that game's really good. And one of the biggest issues with that game that I think actually knocked off points was, one, that it was too easy at times for people, but two, the 30 FPS for a platform action type of game. That game needs 60 FPS. And that's one of the things that I said before. I think one of the things that many other people said was that this game doesn't have 60 FPS, and it really should, considering a game like Super Mario Odyssey has 60 FPS. Most of Nintendo's big 3D or 2D platformers always have 60 FPS. So going at 30 for this game definitely wasn't great overall, but it still sold incredibly well. Best-selling Kirby game by a country mile, and I think that this Nintendo Switch 2 edition is going to fix a lot of those issues, because the Star-Crossed world is probably going to be far more difficult overall, or at least the base difficulty will be better, because they're assuming that you've played through the game and you have the 60 FPS. Even if that's not up to snuff, you have the 60 FPS that truly would kick in and feel great to play for a game like Kirby. So to me, I think that that's going to be an easy update for many people, or an easy pickup for a lot of people as well when it comes down to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that does. And once again, just another reason why that they can just drive the platform itself by bringing these really cool games, these big updates to titles that people really like to play. Because once again, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, one of the better sellers on the Nintendo Switch 1. Now they also have here Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Nintendo Switch 2 edition. They have that for 2025. There's no actual release date, but I'm guessing we're going to get that in like a Nintendo Today update with a trailer or a Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Direct. I think that's definitely possible that they announce that within the next number of weeks, where they're just saying, hey, look, we're going to have a blowout of information on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Also, Kirby Air Riders still set for 2025 according to Nintendo, so that's going to be awesome. I think Masahiro Sakurai, he is in his bag for this type of game, and I think that he's going to create something that's way better than what people are even expecting or anticipating, because Masahiro Sakurai is pouring all that he got into it. He actually literally said that. He's giving it all he got for this game. He loves Kirby. He's the creator of it. He has those old school ties. He just knows, and I know he plays through all the different Kirby games, so I'm expecting this to be a significant improvement over the Kirby Air Rider game on the Nintendo GameCube. This should be way better in every single way. Obviously, the graphics, music, gameplay, content, features, everything should be just taken up to the next notch with this title. So I'm expecting that with Masahiro Sakurai, just like he did when he got a chance to work on something outside of Smash Brothers, and when he took Kid Icarus, a game that was just seen as kind of like, okay, it's this cool little 2D side scroller where like you shoot stuff and there's a little upgrade system, but yeah, nothing too crazy, really difficult and everything, but yeah, it's cool. He took that and turned it into a sprawling Nintendo 3DS action adventure game with multiple tiered segments, from flying Star Fox style missions all the way to ground combat, with an incredible weapon fusion system that give you so many possibilities and weapon combinations, and full 3-on-3 online multiplayer to boot. I mean, this guy took Kid Icarus and turned it into something spectacular. So I'm guessing he is going to do something very similar when it comes to Kirby Air Riders, and that's going to be a big game for 2025. Now, Nintendo has not given a date or release year for Splatoon Raiders, but that's also going to be another game that's probably going to push sales even more overall. Now, another thing to note with this here, guys, like I mentioned before, the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold over 6 million units in 7 weeks. That's actually more than what we've gotten for the total of all PC handhelds combined. So a number of months back, we got the totals of around 6 million units for all PC handhelds. That's the Steam Deck, which that has the majority of it at around 3.7 to 3.8 million, and then the rest of the other PC handhelds round out the rest of that around 6 million number. There's been no update since then, and that was just an estimate from a third-party site. We don't have first-party sales from Valve or from Lenovo or from ROG Ally or from these places. They don't say anything, but that's just the estimate. With Switch 2 already over 6 million units in 7 weeks, once again, there was no need to even port anything over to the other platforms. And on top of that, you look at the article, I remember from IGN when they wrote that Nintendo Switch 2 has to contend with portable PCs. Like, they ran into something that the Switch 1 didn't have to, and I said that this article is going to look really silly very soon. And it looks really silly very soon, as the Nintendo Switch 2 has already outsold the total number that we know of for all of the portable PC handheld market. in only about 7 weeks. So obviously not at this point. If you count in the rest of the weeks, then going into August, and of course Pokemon Legends ZA, clearly the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to surpass portable PCs and go far beyond that. And at this point, who knows how much they're going to do. I would say that they're probably going to do 100 million units when it comes to the overall sales when it's all said and done. That would be the minimum that I would think if they keep on throwing the kitchen sink at the Nintendo Switch 2, because even if you look at it right now, guys, we don't even have the big major 3D Mario. We don't have the big Super Smash Bros. Game that you know is coming. We don't have the big Legend of Zelda title that is coming. We don't have the big Animal Crossing that's coming. Gen 10 Pokemon game that you know is coming. All of this stuff is in development and coming at this point. So once all of those come in, once they get their stock replenished and really get those in stores and get it regularly going, plus with the Nintendo Directs in terms of the big ones that are coming as well, this is just the beginning of it. So I think that the people that were trying to say that with IGN, that article, and other people that were arguing with me back and forth, I think at this point we can all sit there and say that they were completely wrong, which it was easy to tell that they were. I think it was more kind of just for like the views and the clicks, but at the same time, now we actually have the supporting evidence with that, with the sales numbers. So those are all the reasons why I think with the software, with the hardware, that Nintendo is not going to be porting, for right now at least, porting over to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. They don't need to. They've got a lot of stuff on their plate when it comes to supplying stuff for the Nintendo Switch 2 and getting the system off to a hot start. But what do you guys think overall when it comes to everything here that Nintendo talked about with the Nintendo Switch 2 sales and the release lineup? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.